everybody. Good morning. Hi. We're starting a little bit late, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time. Hi there, everybody. We have a lot of tech stuff happening right now, and that's what the holdup is, so I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and Sarah, if you could just make sure the people on Zoom can hear us. Okay, just tell them if you can hear us on Zoom, just give us a thumbs up. That would be great. Because I really, oh, well, nobody has their camera on. Alrighty, well, if you don't know where you are, this is the Indy Senior Living Series. My name is Lisa Treadwell. I am a realtor with Indy Real Estate Experts, and I am also Downsizing Indy, which is a host sponsor of these events. They happen every month, second Thursday from 10 to 11:30, right here in Fellowship Hall. Last month, we were in the wrong room, but we're here now, and we made it, and you all made it, so that's great. We are live streaming on both Facebook and YouTube, I think, and we're on Zoom. And we've got several people on Zoom, so you are also on Zoom, and this camera right here, my little phone right there. So if you guys could just wave to the Zoom people, that'd be great. In the room, wave to the Zoom people. And ideally, I've been studying a lot on how to host hybrid meetings, and ideally, you all can also see the Zoom members. We would have a screen here, but we did away with that. It was all that we could do to get all this. And Shelby here at St. Luke's was really helpful, and I appreciate her techie help. She helped me walk through the audio, which is most important, and getting everyone connected. Sarah is going to be answering questions on YouTube and Facebook and on Zoom. So if you are online, you have questions that you want to ask the panelist or a comment that you want to make, you can go ahead and type it in the comments box, and Sarah will be answering that. You in the audience, obviously just raise your hand or shout it out. We're excited to be back in person, of course, and in the room, we have coffee and pastries. Angelica with Right Serve Care brought that, so she's back there. You can go visit her anytime you get thirsty or hungry. And we could not do this if it weren't for our sponsors. Angelica with Right Serve Care is one of them. Tiffany Wessler with Eagle Down Florist gives us the beautiful flowers that last forever. And then all of these panelists here on the side, you can see Stacy Bonas. She's the one that provides those awesome gift baskets, and I think she even delivered some personally over the last year and a half to people who won the door prize. We've got Dave Holder with assistant, I'm losing my mind here. Just help me out. There you go, assisted living locators. Sycamore Reserve is here, Sean. And then we've got Wickshire and Laura Roman is with Westminster Village. We also have Marquette. Oh, hi, there she is. And so they've all got some educational material and things about their company. We also have one of our two of our sponsors on the panel today, and you're going to hear all about their companies and how they can help. And so I won't introduce them now, I'll let them introduce themselves. All right, the bathrooms are right out the door if you're here in person. There's also a water fountain out there, I think, too. And I think that's all. Have I missed any
Is Sarah going to play the piano?
Yeah, she's going to play for us. There you go. I think that's all the housekeeping stuff. Oh, yeah. And my mom, I love you, Mom. I know that you can just deal with me being ridiculous this morning. She asked me for business cards. I have no idea where they are, but make sure that you sign in with her. She's back there in the teal dress to win door prizes. I know that some of our sponsors have door prizes. Stacy's got her basket back there. We're going to go away the flowers. So if you're interested in signing up for the door prizes, please remember to do that with her. Okay. Without further ado, I'm going to go down the line and have our sponsors introduce So you guys have this packet here. It's probably on the bottom of all your stuff if you're here in person. Online, Sarah is going to post some PowerPoint slides that has the same thing that the people in person have, the list of questions and sponsors and everything. So we're going to get started. If you are here in person, you have plenty of pens at your table. I see at least 3 in each of the settings. So feel free to jot down notes. We're going to give you time to ask questions in between each individual question, and then we'll open it up for general questions at the end, and we'll get started. So we have one mic here, and we can share or pass it down, however we need to do. So the first question is really easy. Just introduce yourselves and what area of expertise you or your company are involved in. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Kate Horrigan. I'm with Indiana Funeral Care. I'm a family advisor at Indiana Funeral Care. So I help people put together their funeral plans in advance. So
That's great.
okay.
Yeah.
Make sure you can hear me as well. Sometimes mics don't pick me up, apparently. So my name is Miranda Richard. I'm an attorney. I do estate planning and elder law. I have been practicing for about 14 years, and the last about 8 years of that has been in estate planning and elder law arena. I am a true solo attorney, and I will go to clients' houses to meet with them to do the estate planning or Medicaid planning, long-term care planning. So that's my region, is anywhere that I can drive to within reason.
Did you all hear Miranda in the room and online? There's always one that's like a self-talker. You're gonna have to like use the microphone and, really put some gusto into it when you talk.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's better than being a high talker.
That's
Yeah,
true.
maybe. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll try to talk softer so you don't have to turn down your mic when I
There you
talk. I'm Jeff Stinson. I'm a certified elder law attorney, which means that I have been tested and peer reviewed to say I'm an elder law specialist. So similar to what Miranda does, I help folks who are in need of long-term care protect assets from the cost of care and access valuable public benefits such as Medicaid and VA to pay for those services. I also have a pretty robust special needs planning practice, which means I'm working with a lot of families who have special needs children, kind of near and dear to my heart and my own family, as well as I work with a lot of disabled folks who have come across a windfall, whether it be an inheritance or a settlement, and I help protect those funds from the cost of their long-term care so it doesn't get all extinguished with their care costs. So I'm a big fan of the Indy Senior Living Series and a big fan of Lisa Treadwell. So you'll notice that I've been a sponsor for a number of years, and my swag is over on the table there. So feel free if you need more information. Courtney from my office is back there and has it available to you. I guess I'll just leave with, if you can believe it or not, I will be celebrating my 20th year in elder law as an attorney this November. Before that, I was a paralegal for a number of years with an elder law firm. So I'm seasoned, but yet, like Lisa, I started when I was like 12.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning. My name is Ken Wiley. I am the senior tax partner at Whitinger and Company CPAs. We have offices in Muncie and here in Indianapolis. For the first 30 years of my career, I did a lot of estate planning. About 10 years ago, the state of Indiana did away with its inheritance tax entirely. So that was a substantial amount of business that no longer exists. 4 years ago, the federal government raised the taxable estate level from $3 million to today it's $11.8 million. So that's a substantial amount of money. So we don't have a lot of people that have that amount of money. So our work in the areas of estate is mostly working with attorneys, helping them with the accounting and tax administration of estates, preparation of estate tax returns on those rare instances where we have people with substantial wealth that they pass, and preparing trust income tax returns. That's part of general estate planning.
So basically, we're just having a party here with 2 attorneys, a funeral home, and an accountant. I mean, Doesn't that sound like fun? No, every year we do this topic and it's a pretty popular one. We have people in the room and I saw double digits online last time I looked. People were still coming in. And so this is a popular topic and I learn something every time. So it's not, I guess, a fun conversation to have, but very necessary. So, okay, so we'll just go down the line and there's no order to speak, just if something comes to mind, we'll share the mics and we've talked about all that in the email that I sent you that you probably did or did not read. So the next question here is prioritize the most important items for estate planning. And when it is best to start planning. So it's kind of two questions in one, and we could probably talk about this forever. My short answer is plan now, don't wait, but let's hear from you guys.
Again, I would suggest, unless you're substantially wealthy, meaning $11.8 million of assets, I think the most critical part of your planning is to make sure that you have the documents in place that people need to have so they know what to do when you're gone. That means a will. If you want to establish trust, have the trust established, have powers of attorney so that people can deal with things in case you get incapacitated before you are deceased. Make sure you have an executor named. Make sure that people know where documents are. My mother passed away September 1 a year ago. She had a lot of these things in order, not all of them. So, we had some search and destroy missions going through the house, trying to find certain things. So unless you, like I said, unless you're substantially wealthy, it's really important that you get the documents in place that are going to determine how your estate and where it goes and what happens to it.
As far as when, I mean, you want to start today. The earlier you plan, the more that somebody like me or Miranda can do on your behalf. I think there's still a common myth or misconception that only the wealthy need to estate plan, and that is absolutely incorrect. What I tell a lot of folks is you don't plan, the state of Indiana is going to plan it for you, and you probably don't want the folks that Indiana says is going to do things for you and take your things when you're gone. So you want to plan. The other thing I'll add to that is I often get the question, hey, Jeff, can you prepare a will for me? And I like to explain there is I'm not just going to prepare a will for you because I think that's a disservice to you. Wills take care of things when you're gone, but more importantly, you need to make sure you have affairs in order to help you if you're incapacitated. That's way more important than dividing things up and distributing when you're gone. So things like your power of attorney, your healthcare advance directives, those are very important so that folks have authority. You've picked the folks that's going to take care of you, and you're not relying on what the state of Indiana's default rule is for you in those circumstances. The other thing I add with a will is, if you just want a will, that often doesn't do much, because think about how you have things titled. Is it in joint name? Does it have a beneficiary on it? Guess what? The will doesn't do anything as far as dividing and distributing those assets. So comprehensive estate plan is what I'm getting at. Putting it all together, making sure, picking your team, making sure they have authority, and then giving them good instruction on how to use those things, where those things are located, what you have, so they know how to kind of implement your plan when necessary.
Comprehensive estate planning is a good thing to keep in mind on one of the later questions that we're going to get to. So keep that in mind, comprehensive estate planning, which Jeff and I, I'm sure both are very good at doing. We don't want to just do one document for you. We want to look at everything and make sure that everything is in order. Of course, if you just want a power of attorney for finances, that's what I'll do, but I would like to see everything else just to make sure you've got all your bases covered. For me, the most important document is your financial power of attorney, your healthcare power of attorney, your HIPAA release that allows someone to talk to your doctors, to look at your medical records. again, just as Jeff said, those are the things that will impact you while you are still alive. And so everyone always thinks, I want to make sure my will is in place or my trust is in place so I know that everything is going exactly where I want it to be. And those things are very important. But your advance directives, those are the things that will impact you while you're still alive, potentially. So you may never need them. And a lot of people think, I don't need to put this in place because I'm never going to be incapacitated. Just as people think, I don't need to put a will or a trust in place because I'm never going to die. Unfortunately, no one has invented that yet. Now, my 6-year-old is trying, but it's going to be a long time before he gets there, and I'm not sure he's going to make it. So advanced directives are the most important thing. Tell the world who you want to handle things if you're not able to handle them yourself. And that could just be a temporary thing. Say you go into surgery and some complication happens and they have to keep you sedated for a couple of weeks because there was a complication. Who is going to pay your bills? Who is going to make medical decisions for you? It doesn't have to be, we're not necessarily looking at that time when you are incapacitated forever. This can also happen at any point in your life. And so the best time to put that type of planning in place is today. As long as you're 18 or older and you're competent to do so, get your advanced directives in place. The will and trust are what I think is next in priority because everyone worries that things are not going to go to who they think they want them to go to. Get those reviewed, make sure that everything is the way it needs to be, get them done if you haven't done them before. And more importantly, review them every year when you do your taxes. Put them at the same place, pull them out, make sure your executor, your trustee, your beneficiaries are all what they should be because things change over time. And then after that would be pre-planning for long-term care, and then what I call crisis planning when you need in-home care or you need to go to nursing home. Those typically come further down the line. But if you're just getting out of the hospital and they say you're going to have to go to rehab, you need to be in a nursing home, and you're still competent, you don't have any of those things done, I'm happy to do them all at that time. But it's easier if we're not in that crisis situation when so many other things are going on.
Hey, Sarah, I just thought of something. If you want to take over that back table to put out your stuff, and then Laura, same for you, like we didn't get enough tables. I just thought of that while it's on my mind. And then we have a question. Go ahead. I'm going to repeat her question for online and in the room.
Who determines when you're impaired?
Who determines when you're impaired? That's a great question. Go ahead.
You would think that would be an easy question. Sometimes it is obvious. Sometimes it's something that gets fought about in court. Even two attorneys can have differing opinions over whether someone is competent or not. And so attorneys and tax CPAs, other people in the industry have different ways that they deal with that. For me, if there's a question of competence and someone wants to do those planning documents, a lot of times I will tell them, go to your doctor and let's see, what if your doctor says that everything is okay. But it's something we would talk about if there is any type of question. It's one of the reasons that I want to meet with people either in person or by Zoom so that I can assess how well you're doing, both to ensure that you are competent and then to be able to have that in my mind in case anyone ever questions it later.
And that's not something that we take lightly at all.
No.
It's not, we don't just, have you guys seen that movie? Do you know the movie I'm talking about? Anyway.
Yes.
There's a movie about,
It's the guardianship movie.
Yes, yeah.
For all the-
It's not taken lightly at all.
No, so if there are questions over someone's competency, a lot of times that will go to court and then a judge ultimately would make that determination based on what the doctor says, based on other extraneous evidence on whether there's competence or not.
If you planned, oftentimes you can define what it means to be incapacitated. So a lot of the documents I might prepare for clients will say, this can be used when my doctor has certified in writing that I am unable to understand my financial and personal affairs. So I think that might be more tuned to your question there. As far as though capacity, everyone's supposed to have capacity until a judge determines otherwise. So oftentimes it's a hard job for us attorneys because we're working We might pull some, if we've never worked with somebody before, we might pull some data from the doctor to see if they have capacity. We're making our own judgment. The standard on to execute one document is different than another standard on another document. So we're kind of working those. And as Lisa said, it's not something I take lightly. Oftentimes, kids will bring in mom or dad, and kids will go sit in the hallway while I talk to mom and dad. They have a hard time understanding that sometimes, but I'm here to meet with mom and dad, not the kids, and do what they want, not what the kids want. So.
That's good. Something Jeff said, I won't forget you. Something you said early on when you started answering this question was, and you alluded to it too, Miranda, was I don't just prepare a will, that would be a disservice. I liken that to, this actually happened to me recently. I liken that to a realtor printing off our state forms, state purchase agreement, and handing it over to somebody to put together a real estate transaction. We had a senior actually do that. His buyer of his house happened to be the best friends of the neighbor, and a realtor printed off a blank purchase agreement and gave it to him and said, here you go. Well, our clients had actually never sold a house before, ever. They built that house in 1974 and they've lived there this whole time. They are kind of forget, they're not incapacitated, but they forget things and get confused very easily. So by the time I got to them, I had a whole lot of stuff to fix because another person printed off our state forms and just handed him a blank form and said, fill this out, because they didn't want to pay a professional realtor to help them. And so we had to back up a lot. That was a disservice. So that's kind of I would say, would you say that's kind of a similar concept?
Absolutely.
As, hey, I just want a will,
Ultimately, it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
Brian and I to fix something that a layman has done than to just come to us to begin with and put it together.
Yes, right. And that in our industry, that's not ethical. And so, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, like the others, I strongly emphasize planning now. And when you, one thing I put in the packet, it looks like this. But these are the list. This is a comprehensive list of all the things you can plan in advance as far as funeral arrangements. And with funeral arrangements, there's way more than just the actual service. There's lots of information that we have to collect. Death certificate, details as far as, what do you want your songs to be? What do you want what clothes do you want to wear if you're having a viewing? So it goes, it's very extensive, and it's great to have that done in advance because you don't want to leave that to your family, your children, loved ones, friends, to have to make those decisions for you. One thing about a funeral plan also that is important is when you plan in advance and pay for it in advance, you lock in today's prices. So to give you a good example of how that is beneficial, my mother-in-law passed away a couple of years ago, and she was almost 92 when she died. She had planned her funeral about 20 years earlier when the receipt for her planning was $6,000, and she's Irish Catholic, and she wanted all the bells and whistles and everything. So it was $6,000 back in 1990 or whenever it was. Had we paid for that at current prices, it would have been over $14,000. So the benefit is great financially, it's great emotionally, and truthfully, it gives you a lot of peace of mind knowing that the plans are in place. So either that your kids aren't going to spend $14,000, or you can take care of that in advance. You can get the plans that you want put together. So strongly encourage you to do it now. Another question that also often comes up is, well, what if I move, or is my money safe? And when a funeral home accepts prepaid funeral funds, they have to put it with a third-party trust. And so it is tied to your social security number, cannot be touched until we as the funeral home send a notice of your death, a certificate of death. And it also can travel with you. Should you move, should something happen to our funeral home, you can transfer that easily to another funeral provider. So there are no downsides, as far as I know, of planning in advance, and a lot of upsides. So taking care of it now is a good thing to do.
And for the people who are watching online, either Zoom or Facebook or YouTube, we will send you electronic copies of everything that the panelists and sponsors have shared. I put in the comment box of Zoom, either Sarah or I, our email address. You can also post in the comments. Just give us a way to get that information to you. Question, and I think there was one more, so I'll take yours first.
I just want to add to your commentary, how important it is really to plan ahead because the emotion is not there that you deal with and get taken advantage of later. I've had all of my plans done since I was 18 years old. My husband thought I should. And
That's awesome.
we planned his, so when he died, I didn't have to go through that. All I had to do is say, pull up his records and everything is there. All I had to do is show up.
It
Makes
is
a big difference.
emotionally, yes.
Yes.
I have a question on the subject of trusts, and I don't see any questions or discussion points coming up later on that might get into that. So can I ask about that?
Yeah, go right ahead. And also, if you're online, you can type your questions in the comment box, and we're watching that, and we'll ask your questions as well. And so we have a question about trust. I'm going to repeat it after you say it so everybody can hear.
Yeah. I'm not an attorney, but I know enough about trust to know that there are more than one kind. In particular, there are what are considered to be revocable, which there are a lot of legal peddlers out there, frankly pushing. Or there's also irrevocable. And I wonder if you could talk about the difference between them, and in particular, someone is concerned about the subject of probate, which is a better one to use.
So the question was about trust, revocable versus irrevocable. So we'll let our attorneys ask that. And then the probate.
So that could take up a significant portion of time. So I'm going to just skim it a little bit. And then if you have questions, you can reach out to either one of us after the presentation today. So a revocable trust is a trust that you can revoke. And so if you set it up and at some point you decide you don't want it to be in place anymore, you can revoke it. Everything is going to revert, typically going to revert back to you. An irrevocable trust is one that you cannot revoke. So it's going to continue to stay in place. It may or may not be amendable. A lot of times they are not amendable, but it's something that you cannot revoke. A lot of times when people talk about pre-planning for long-term care, what they're referring to is an irrevocable trust. Not all irrevocable trusts meet the requirements to start that long-term care pre-planning. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. You have to know what terms to put in there to make sure that it's meeting those requirements. As far as probate, avoiding probate is something that a trust would do, but you have to put the things into it. So a lot of times people will create a trust and then they don't fund it. So they don't title the deed of the home into the trust. They don't change the ownership of their checking account, their investments to the trust. There may be situations where you don't want things in the trust, but it's something that you really should talk to your attorney and your financial advisor and your CPA as a team, preferably, about, especially if you have complex assets, on whether things should go into the trust or stay out. So avoiding probate is putting a mechanism in place that directs what is going to happen to your assets without them going through that formal court process. I'll let Jeff expand on that.
I reiterate what you said. That's one of my pet peeves. You're going to get me up on my soapbox a little bit here, in that I think trusts are oversold. There's a lot of laymen out there that, despite there being problems with this, they're still trying to peddle their living trust plans or their whatever label. One of the issues is it's hard to put a label on a trust. A trust basically does what you tell it to do. It's nothing more than a holding tank, and you can put whatever you want into that holding tank, whether it be a house or brokerage account or cash, whatever you want to put in there. Then you designate a trustee on who's in charge of that trust for the benefit of a beneficiary. So the terms of the trust is what dictates what it does. That contract between, call it a contract, the instructions between the creator of the trust and the trustee. Depending upon its purpose, there'll be different language in there that's different from another. So I'm not going to expand any further on what Miranda said, because she hit the nail on the head. You know, revocable trust is just your alter ego. It can be get rid of. You can get, the only thing it's doing there is maybe avoiding probate and keeping things private and so on. It's not protecting assets. Those are typically done through an irrevocable trust. But even then, you need to have somebody that knows what they're doing there, because the rules as far as protecting those assets are very precise. So if there's the wrong language in there, the wrong beneficiary, that's going to be out too. A lot of people will create trust either for a purpose, protect assets, protect it from the cost of, you know, saving income taxes, saving estate taxes, protect the beneficiary from themselves. So generally, you like to think of it as a purpose rather than a label. I'm happy to expand further on that. I know that there's just, you could go on and on and on about trust. Just remember, I would just recommend get a hold of somebody that is a professional in the area that can advise you. Do you need a trust? Do you want a trust? Does it fit your purposes that you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think that could be a full panel discussion. And by the way, it's not very often that you get any of these panelists 90 minutes for free. So we're pretty lucky in that regard.
You can also avoid probate other ways than just through a trust. And you know, maybe we can expand on that on a different question.
And both of their contact information is on your table and it's in the handout as well. So we encourage an in-person consultation with all of these panelists if you have, you know, specific questions. But yeah, that was a good question. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions online? Okay, I know some people were putting in their email addresses to receive some of the handouts, and we'll make sure we're getting those out to you. Any other questions on that topic? Okay, we will go on to, this is a good one. We kind of touched on it. Who should have copies of my plans and where should they be kept? Go ahead. We haven't heard from you in a minute. We got those attorneys and they just started talking and talking.
Sorry. People that are going to be responsible for dealing with your estate or dealing with your affairs if you're incapacitated, they absolutely have to know what their job is, and they have to know where the documents are that they need to be able to prove to a third party that they have the authority to act on your behalf. So those are the people that need to know. Absolutely are the people that are particularly in your advanced directives, the people that are named in those, they need to know where they are. They need to have, and the documents that they need to be with them.
For me?
Sure. So it depends a little bit on how private, I guess, you want to make those documents. And so again, that's another conversation that you can have with your attorney, you can have with your financial advisor, your CPA. Some people don't want anyone to know what is contained in those estate planning documents until the time comes when they're necessary to use. And so they may hold those with their CPA, with their attorney, with someone who is not, you know, related to the kids, if the kids are the ones who, you know, would be carrying things out. Some people want everyone to know so that there's just no question and it's all out there on the table. And so that's kind of a personal preference. What I would say is keep your originals in a secure location that is fireproof, that is flood resistant, wherever that is. You can keep it in a safe deposit box with a bank. You can keep it in a fireproof safe at your home. You can keep it in various places, but keep your original somewhere where it's safe. And then if you want other people to know what is in that, you can give them copies because it's important to keep your original documents intact. There are some situations where you may want to have a path for how to access your documents. So if you have cryptocurrency, for instance, and you have instructions with any of your planning documents on your cryptocurrency, you have to have at some point through the breadcrumbs access to your crypto, your password and you have sign-on information so they can access that, but you don't really want to give that to anyone while you're still alive. And so some people will say, go talk to Bob, the neighbor, and then he's going to tell you where the safe deposit box and then go talk to Fred, my best friend, and he has the key for that. And so it becomes more complicated depending on what assets you have that you're managing, because cryptocurrency can be nothing or it could be millions of dollars. So most things are not that complex, but it varies. I think that would be safe to say.
Kate, do you want to add anything?
Oh no, I'm just like shocked at cryptocurrency every time it comes up.
Yeah, Laura.
I just want to say from a user perspective, so I'm with the retirement community. And I want to talk about the documents that they are creating for you and how it affects us, because I see too often where people move into a retirement community where they've had a stroke or they're in the hospital, and suddenly documents like power of attorney are very important. Kids don't have copies of them, they don't know where they are. It becomes a gigantic scramble at that moment. So advocate for making sure that those documents are up to date. For instance, oftentimes couples will make their spouse as their decision maker if they were incapacitated for care, but the spouse predeceases them. And then it's like, okay, now what? And so from our perspective, when somebody comes in, we're really limited with what we can and can't do based on that documentation. Some kids say to me, I don't want to talk to mom and dad about things like this. I want to say, as a parent or as somebody who's trying to be wise about your future, please share those documents. Let your children have a copy of it or know exactly where it is in your home. Maybe you have a copy in your safe deposit box or something like that, but have it easy to access. Because on my end, we see this. I know I can speak for my colleagues over here. We see it all the time as a problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a little bit, but I want to reinforce it.
Yeah, Laura was just, just advocating for not only letting people know where copies of everything is, but also updating it is important as well. So, and a lot of this is really dependent on you as an individual, because everybody's different. Everybody's situation is different. I think that's what's really fun about working with clients, is that every job that we have is different, and we get to figure out how to make it work, right? That's fun, right, Sarah? Sarah's like, you've been really busy lately. Yes.
Two people mentioned safe deposit box.
Yes.
So can my kid get into my safe deposit box?
I was going to fly. I was sitting on pins and needles here waiting for that opportunity.
Wait, repeat the question.
So a couple times we've heard, put your documents in your safe deposit box. Here's a problem though, if you're going to do that. If you are the only person on that box and you have stuck the authority to get into that box into the box, then your person needing that document can't get into the box. So if you're going to do that, make sure that you have a second owner or a second person that can access that box during your lifetime, preferably the person that needs that power of attorney. Otherwise, it could be problematic. The other thing I was just going to mention that everyone else have just kind of add to what everyone else had mentioned is just reiterate, make sure your team knows where the originals are. A lot of my clients store them with me. That's great. If you're doing that with your attorney, ask your attorney what their contingency plan is if something happens to that attorney, because I have seen that happen a few times where we can't find mom and dad's documents. They were with Mr. Jones, who was their attorney 20 years ago. He's either passed away or we don't even know where he is, those types of things. I've got a contingency plan. So if something happens to me from here to the office today, there's another attorney knows where my files are, and I have to take care of all my clients so that their originals aren't just sitting in a vault somewhere rotting away. So that would be my only other second piece of advice there.
And I have my clients keep their originals, so that's not an issue. Also, so that if they decide they want to change it later, they don't have to track me down. They can go to any attorney if they can't find me for some reason, although I plan to be around for a long time. On the safe deposit box, talk to your bank because you likely can designate someone who has the ability to access that, but you have to go into the bank and designate that on the documents.
The question.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
lot of times you have to have the actual person go in and sign.
Yeah.
So I've had to do that 2 times. And they sign the document, they can have access with the death certificate.
One thing I just want to add is a lot of people I hear, oh, I have my funeral instructions in my will.
Oh,
And
Oh.
just for those of you who might be in that situation, the will usually isn't read until long after the funeral is over. So that's not a good plan. Try to have something else in place.
What else could they have in place? If we don't put it in our will, can we hold it at your place?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We can, regardless of whether or not you want to pay for it in advance or just have it planned in advance, we can take that information on file, collect the information that is on here. So we have a good file set up for you and all your wishes and everything. And that way, most everything is set up other than potentially funding it. You get the benefit of locking in today's price as well as the ability to make payments if you decide to fund it in advance. But at the time of the funeral, most funeral homes will expect full payment prior to the services taking place. So
There's also a funeral planning declaration that you can do. You have to sign it. It's going to have to be notarized or witnessed. And so you can set those things out if you don't want to go to a funeral home and set it out there, or you can do both. That would be ideal. But if you've got it at the funeral home and you tell your family or your loved ones, go to this funeral home and contact them when I pass away, they're already going to have it there. You don't have to search for anything else.
okay, can a family member change the services after you're passed?
Oh,
Yes.
good question.
Okay.
yes, the family member can change the services after your pass, unless you put in a funeral planning declaration, which, thank you.
That was a softball to the two of them.
Nice, I like it.
Yes, and in some situations, the family dynamics are not great. And so you may want to have, your best friend be the one who is in charge of your funeral and make sure that everything takes place. And that is a good opportunity or a good reason to set up a funeral planning declaration, because then you can designate exactly who is going to be making the decisions on your behalf at the time of your funeral. But we've had situations where, similar to my mother-in-law, this didn't happen in our family, but she had the big funeral planned, and the kids came along at the end and said, nope, we're not going to do this. We're just going to cremate her. And they got the money back and went ahead and went on vacation. So, it's not outside of their ability to do that. So having a funeral planning declaration can provide some reassurance that that's not going to happen.
They bring up worse things, don't they? Yeah. We have audience members that I can't believe that. I mean, I can believe that it happens because I've seen something similar happen like that. Yeah. So I saw somebody, did you raise your hand or just, no? Okay. I'm checking for questions, comments besides wow. Wow, just wow. Yeah. We have unfortunately had situations where, not everybody is kosher and getting along. Deciphering what to do with their parents or their family members, things including real estate and funerals and things like that. And other times we've had, 5 siblings all do it. They were like, they had a system down. You could tell that they planned it. And it went very smoothly.
I'm a big believer in karma though, so.
There you go. Other questions? Yes, sir. Hi.
Is, if you pre-plan a funeral, can your life insurance pay for that then?
Oh, this is a good question. I was actually going to ask you guys, he said, if you pre-plan a funeral, can your life insurance pay for it? My question was more about asset, protection, with regards to funeral, funding a funeral, but go ahead with his.
Yes. So yes, definitely, you can do that. We plan the details as far as, you can select a casket, you can select all the, all of the specifics of the funeral plan, and then use the life insurance proceeds as a form of payment. Typically, and in our situation, we do what's called an expediting of the payout of the policy. And that just gets us a guarantee that the policy is going to get paid to us. We don't accept something that may have, had a loan taken out on it or had, some cash value extracted from it, because we can't tell that right off the bat. And the life insurance company usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks to pay for that. However, and you guys can speak to this better to me, if you're planning, if you are in a situation where you have to, you need nursing care, you need to be in a facility, a life insurance policy, the cash value of that is viewed as an asset. So in order to qualify for Medicaid paying for your nursing home care, you will have to reduce your assets to a point where typically the cash value of the life insurance either needs to be signed over to us, or the policy needs to be signed over to us as, and then you don't get any of the money back, or you cash in that life insurance policy. So your overall asset calculation is reduced, so you can qualify for the state to pay for your nursing care. I'll let these guys talk about it more, but I know how it works.
I think all of you can
Yes.
probably speak about some of this.
Yeah, so that was a good explanation. If you are needing long-term care, in-home care, nursing home care, and you're looking at potentially applying for long-term care Medicaid to help pay for that, an attorney can help you to analyze, what's the cash value of your life insurance? Has it been irrevocably assigned to a funeral home? Should it be cashed out? Should it be irrevocably assigned? And help you determine how best to address that. And so that's the piece that I have. I won't go into specifics on what is required in order for a funeral prepay and life insurance policy tied to that to be Medicaid compliant, because they like to change that rule often because they think that everyone is hiding all their assets in their funeral prepays for some reason. So I'll let you expound on that.
Our Indiana Medicaid agency intensely scrutinizes prepaid funeral plans. So if your purpose is to protect this from long-term care costs accessing Medicaid, you probably want to have an attorney look at it before you apply for benefits. I was just going to expand on, if your intent is my life insurance is going to be used to pay for my funeral and you're not assigning the ownership over to a funeral home, don't name your son John, who's going to then use that for or I discourage you from naming John, who would take those proceeds and use them for the funeral, because one, John doesn't have to. If you name John, this John's money. And two, if something happens to John, then you're stuck in this catch-22. So do it the right way, prearrange it, assign it over to the funeral home.
Does that make sense? I see a lot of people doing this, like, did we just blow your mind?
It's kind of like the liquidate my prearrangement, go on vacation, do the cheapest thing.
Yeah.
John can take the money, go on vacation, and then
No
somebody
offense
else is
to
paying. the
John,
funeral.
if you
Yeah.
have any John.
Well, and the other thing I want to add is if you prearrange and pre-fund your funeral through a funeral home, that goes into an irrevocable trust, which does not count towards asset calculation with long-term care. So I know it's a lot of big words that you're probably like, heads are spinning, but it is something that you can do to spend your money and spend down your money in order to qualify for Medicaid. And the state does not look at that as an asset. So it is it's a very popular way for people to expedite the qualifying for Medicaid.
Okay, any questions on that topic? That was like, I think we could talk about that in over 90 minutes too. Pre-planning funerals, asset protection. I don't even remember what the actual, oh, it was life insurance. The question was about life insurance for planning. Anything online? Okay, so we're gonna go on to the next question. Oh, I like this. I wrote this. This is why I like it, because this is what happens in my world a lot. I can do everything myself, can't I? Why would I pay a professional? Why? I want to save my money. I want to give it to my kids, or, you know, whatever. Why do I have to pay somebody? You're so expensive.
Well, I am not an attorney, but I did work with my grandparents on Medicaid planning. And I have a lot more training in a lot of these areas than most lay people do. There's not anyone in the world that I would have attempted to get them qualified to Medicaid without having good legal counsel. Because it's Miranda, and she's much more aware of than I am, those rules change about every 90 days, I think.
Yeah.
So you need to have competent professional help, because, again, I'm not an attorney. I can't draft documents. There are court cases where a comma
Yes.
made the difference between whether somebody won or whether somebody lost. I don't know the specifics of the case, but I know that there are court cases where the judge said, because there's a comma there, this means this.
Yes.
Or because there wasn't a comma there, this means that. So you need somebody, and I don't draft documents because I'm not an attorney, but you need professional, you need competent professional advice, or you're going to find yourself, or your heirs are going to find themselves in a very, very bad place.
By the way, Ken, on Whitinger and Associates, it has Jill West, but Ken Wiley, you can call that number there, or the website too. And I've actually had clients in a situation.
Jill's the pretty one in the back there.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I've had that exact situation where a comma trustee was not on a document, and it was a really bad situation for everyone involved. So I can attest that that has happened. It does
Daggone
happen.
lawyers.
Yeah. Why?
I will admit, I love to do things myself. I have put wood flooring in my entire first level of my house. I've painted, stained. I like to build stuff, but you need to recognize, and I'll tell you a really, really quick story. Even I made this mistake. You got to recognize when it's better to let a professional do it. I was decided that when I purchased my house, the basement was unfinished. So I decided I was going to finish the basement, and I was going pretty good there. And it was actually Easter morning. And I thought, before everyone gets here, before the family gets here for Easter meal, I'm going downstairs and doing some additional framing. And I'm just got it up there and going away. And the nail went in, and I heard this, and then all of a sudden water's going everywhere. So I had to call a plumber on Easter Sunday to come out to my house, because we tried to shut the water line off. And by the way, the water, the turn, it just crumbled in my hand. So we're putting trash cans over to catch this water. To get the plumber out, it was not cheap. He asked me while he was there, he said, "How much trouble are you in?" And I said, "Well, I'm down here with you while you're fixing this, not upstairs having dinner. So what do you think?" So just a lesson that I understand trying to keep costs down, trying to do things yourself, because there's some reward of accomplishing something on your own, but recognize when a professional is needed. You don't want to mess up your estate planning. You want to make sure that the trustee is the person signing as trustee, not personally. There could be problems there. You just want to make sure, I'm not selling my documents. I've put in 20 some odd years of effort into putting these things together, but I'm selling my expertise. I'm selling my service to you, advising you so that your plan is going to do what you want it to do.
And experience. You've probably seen a lot in your 20 years of practicing law. I mean.
Well, and I've gotten wise enough that I used to try to do trust income tax returns. And finally, I just decided Ken is much more in tune to doing those things than I am. I don't want to remember distributable net income and simple and complex and all those other things. I'd rather just hand them to him and let him do it. So even in my own practice, I only do the things that I know that I'm very good at and let other professionals handle the other stuff.
So remember before I said, when Jeff was talking about comprehensive review, this is what you don't get when you do that online. So I've seen the online, forms that you can fill out. There are even programs that say they'll walk you through it, but there's no one sitting there with you and saying, tell me what you want. Let's see if it's reflected in the documents you have, or let's prepare new documents that reflect that if you haven't done that before. And so you may think that what you need is a will when what you need is a trust, or you may think you need a trust when you really just need a will. You may think that you are that power of attorney, financial power of attorney you're reading online sounds really good. And then you become incompetent and your kids or whoever brings that to me so that they can act, and I review it to look for the thing that we need for the specific situation. And I say, it's not in there. And a lot of times they'll say, but it says that it has the power, I have the power to do everything. Well, because Jeff and I both work in that elder law area where we're dealing with people who are incapacitated often, the practical reality of that is that a life insurance company may want to see a specific piece of language in there that directs that power of attorney in fact to be able to do whatever it is we need to do. So your online forms, no one is reviewing it to see if it fits your specific situation. And I have reviewed many online forms that just at the end of the day did not meet the requirements for what we needed. And not only that, there's no one watching the executions. There's no one checking to make sure that you get it executed correctly. The saddest thing in the world is when someone brings in a really good power of attorney that they somehow found online, and it's signed, it's not notarized, it's not properly executed, and so it has no weight. And so I don't want to be the doom and gloom person. It's just, get it done early. It's far less expensive to put a good power of attorney in place than it is to have to seek guardianship later, because the power of attorney you have in place doesn't meet the requirements for what you need, but the action still needs to happen. So I could go on and on about that because it's my soapbox is working with someone who can review your personal situation. But I guess I'll leave it to that because attorneys can talk forever.
Kate, why would I pay a professional to plan my funeral? One thing that I thought about in your industry is this concept, and I think maybe you shared it at another one of these events, that the funeral is not for the person who died, it's for the people who are grieving. And so I don't know.
Yes, so that is something that I try to touch upon every time I have a chance to speak to people, is that when you die, hopefully you'll be resting in peace and all of that, but you will not be there as far as sharing the memories and laughing with everyone. And so it's important to get input from your children as far as whether or not, what they want. A lot of people, especially these days, are looking to save money and I just want to be cremated. Well, when we have, our low end cremation is we pick you up from where you pass away. bring you to our facility. We have our own crematorium on site. We file the paperwork. We get everything done that needs to be done with, with the state, with the government forms. And then we do the cremation. So if your daughter doesn't see you prior to being picked up from either the hospital, the facility, or home, she's not going to see you at the end. So there's no opportunity for this time to say goodbye, this time to, for her to have that piece of the grieving process. So, we offer options where it's just a simple final goodbye, but it's 20 minutes that a person can actually see their loved one before the cremation takes place. There's other options of you can have the full visitation in order to, have a chance for family and friends to share their memories and see their loved one. The deceased is embalmed and laid out in a rental casket is what it is. We take out the interior of it with each individual. But those are important steps for the people who are left behind. As you experience when your husband died. The grieving process is an important part of life, and you don't want to sell that short by saving a little bit of money on the funeral process. So, yes.
I just went through a process over in Ohio where I had a family member die, and before the cremation could be done, they had to get a death certificate. I just wonder if that's required here in Indiana.
It is required in Indiana.
Death certificate for cremation. I'm sorry, I'm just repeating the question so everybody can hear.
We are required to have a death certificate that's signed by a physician stating the cause of death before the cremation can take place. There's also a minimum of a 48-hour waiting period from the time of death until a cremation can take place, and then getting the document signed by a physician. So we can't cremate immediately. There are some religious exceptions where things would take place, but most of the time there's a requirement to have the cause of death on the death certificate. In some cases, we have the coroner's office, especially in Marion County, is backed up for several weeks. So they will issue what's basically a preliminary death certificate, cause of death, because, obviously you can't keep a body for 10 weeks before you cremate it. So it's not the official one that you use for closing out accounts and financial reasons, but there is a preliminary cause of death issued. It's probably a requirement in most places, I would imagine.
Okay, questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to comment on that. Just like robbing banks is illegal, it does happen. And it happened in one case where the deceased the death took place at 2 p.m. By the time the family was notified, it had already been cremated by 7 p.m. and that was on Sunday. That was questionable, which is why that was pushed through. If there's any question in your mind about the cause of death, or you don't know about it, that's something that people do need to be aware of. It does happen.
True. And the family can request their own autopsy if they suspect foul play is involved, and that happens unfortunately more often than we like to think. But probably not a licensed funeral home did that cremation, or at least not licensed anymore.
There you go. The bottom line is we all are full-time in what we do, and so we see a lot of different scenarios, and we can use our experience to help our clients avoid either paying extra for a plumber on a Sunday, Easter Sunday, or leaving money on the table. We recently, as recent as last week, moved someone who they kind of thought that they could do everything themselves in terms of selling their house, because selling your house is easy right now, right? There's not enough inventory on the market. Well, yeah, of course, getting an offer is the easy part, but getting to the closing table is actually what matters. These people, they left $50,000 to $75,000 on the table because they didn't list their property live on the market. They had somebody approach them, which I know happens a lot recently. Come on in if you want. We all get postcards and calls and text messages about I want to buy your house. Even I get them at my house. But yeah, so you're either going to pay extra to fix the mistake that you made, or try to cut corners, or in this case, they left money on the table, and quite a lot. And I think that's pretty significant, especially when you're retiring or you are retired and you're on a limited budget. $75,000 is a lot of money. Even if you're not retired, that's a lot of money to leave on the table. So yeah, just suck it up and hire a professional, right? Any questions specific to that area, online or in person? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add to this question about cremation, and so this, when my father died, all of his children, all 5 of us, knew that he wanted to be buried. Our stepmother wanted him cremated because it was cheaper. Our stepmother won.
Oh, that's interesting.
So getting it talked out beforehand is with the person who, like you're talking about, is also important if you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an ugly subject to have to talk about with
Sure.
kids, but they're all gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is certain, we have to pay our taxes and we're gonna die, right? That's saying. So her comment was about siblings having one wish for their parent, and then a step parent actually did something else because it was less money against what all of the siblings wanted. So in that case, what's the best? What would be the best thing to do? She said, talk it out while, everybody's.
It would be the funeral planning declaration is the best way to take care of that. Having it, your father would say, this is what I want, and these are the wishes, and that supersedes next of kin as far as decision making. And so that would have eliminated those discussions. Planning in advance and paying for it would have helped as far as the financial side of it as well.
Yep.
And the funeral planning declaration is actually it's a two-sided form that, you can come to the funeral home or any funeral home and fill that out. You don't have to, nothing against these guys, but you don't have to hire an attorney to get that a document put together. So it's.
But if you did that and you went to an attorney to have all of your documents put together, it would be important to share that information with.
Definitely. Yeah, it's all part of kind of the comprehensive plan.
Or your CPA as
Yes.
well, yeah.
Mhm.
Questions, comments online in the room? Okay. I had a thought, I lost it, it'll come back. They usually do if it's important, right? Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. How is having an end-of-life plan in place considered leaving a legacy? So in previous panels on this topic, we've named it leaving a legacy, resources for leaving a legacy. I was trying to be funny when I named it planning my estate. Just trying to mix it up a little bit because so many of you come to these events every month, which I love. I'm getting to know all of you, consider you friends. And then you see a topic that resembles the same title and you've been there and you decide not to come. And I encourage you to come, even if it's a title that you've already seen, because I learned something on this topic and on several of them every time we have it. And this is our 5th year. So on some of these, we've talked about it, for 5 years in a row. So anyway, that's the deal with the topic. So how is having an end of life plan considered leaving a legacy?
So I think what I've experienced, and I've been with Indiana Funeral Care for 5 years, that one of the best days in the office, so to speak, is when a family comes in and really has a celebration of life. And you can hear that they're laughing and they're, they loved their parent, they loved their grandparent, they had friends that came, and everybody really enjoyed that moment. And I think that's having that opportunity for the survivors, the family members to laugh and share those memorable times and great great things about their loved one who has died it really helps them to transition to life without them. And so, leaving the legacy of, mom or dad took care of this, so we didn't have to worry about the stress of the emotional side, and having that time, instead of spending 2 or 3 hours in a funeral home making those plans, when you're really upset and emotional and you get to be with loved ones and other people that loved the person who passed away, is a much better way to have that transition take place. So anything you can do in advance to make that time easier is a true gift to give to your family and friends. So
I'll pass it down so that we can, because I could steal it all day. So we'll do me at the end, and then hopefully it'll be quick.
Ken?
I guess, having had several deaths in my family recently, I would suggest to you that your legacy should not be what you've accumulated in your life, what you can give to people when you're gone. I think your legacy should be, yes, I'll move on. Your legacy should be that you love the people in your life, and you took care of the people in your life. And I have seen, fortunately not in my family, but I have seen many occasions where failure to do any planning or give people advance notice if there's a surprise in your planning has really caused much turmoil and much pain to surviving children and spouses and siblings. And I would encourage you that the last act that people remember me for is that you drove wedges between your family members and your friends.
Good, that's good, Ken.
I don't think I can say it any better than what Kate and Ken have already said. Your legacy is not your stuff. Your legacy is not your cash. Those things are exhaustible. Your legacy is folks sitting around a room talking, telling stories about you, your values, things that happened to you. In my own family, that's my grandpa's legacy, is how he was just never met a stranger and was always supportive of me and allowed me at 11 years old to drive a pickup truck. Those are the stories. Those are the things that are legacy, not what I do. So the importance of planning, as Kate mentioned, is you get all that stuff out of the way so they can focus on your legacy.
I agree. So you can put very complicated distribution schemes in a will or a trust, but really at the end of the day, the thing that gives your loved ones relief is being told that everything is taken care of. Because when someone comes to me because parent or husband or wife or loved one has died and they say, what do we do now? It isn't a time where they want to be told there are lots of things that we need to take care of. It's a time when they want to be told, okay, it's pretty easy. Everything was set up. And they walk away and they say, that's it? I say, yeah, that's it. So being able to say that to people brings me joy in a sad situation that we can't avoid. And so I think that it's been well said.
That's good stuff. Thank you guys for sharing. We have a question online.
Bill would like to know if the attorneys could be more specific on when you would recommend a trust be used.
The attorneys be more specific on when a trust is used, but I want to just take a minute and just really I don't want to skip past what you guys said, because I think all of you couldn't have said it better. It's not our things. And the last thing that we could do and the memory that we could leave our loved ones is that everything was taken care of, and we could just talk about the memories, about stories that happened to us, or how our uncle let us drive illegally, or I mean, that's really what it's about. It's not about the money, it's not about the things, because I told somebody this one time, she was talking about all her things that she wanted to take with her. I went out on a limb. I didn't know how she was going to receive this at all, but I said, well, you can't put that in the casket with you, so. And she took it okay, she received it all right, but I mean, it's true. They're just things. The things that stick are the way that we make our loved ones feel and the memories that we share together. And so, yeah, well said, all of you. Trust.
Yeah, I got to follow that with trust. Okay, let's see if I can distill this down. You need a trust if you are wealthy and have potential federal estate tax issues. You may need a trust to help save income taxes. You need a trust, potentially, if you're trying to protect assets from the cost of long-term care. Gotta be the right trust, but you need a trust, typically, in my opinion, in that circumstance. You may also need a trust if you just have a buku amount of accounts and life insurance policies and retirement accounts. A trust can be a nice funnel to funnel all of those things through, so that you're only changing beneficiaries one time thereafter. So you don't have to change your life insurance beneficiary and your IRA beneficiary and so on. It all funnels into that trust. You can use the trust. You may want a trust because you want to keep your affairs private. You may want a trust if you want to avoid probate. My caution on that is probate is not the horrible thing that is made out to be. Most often, if you're just looking at saving money, you're not going to save any more money setting up a trust than you are going through probate with your will. And that's because you're going to pay Miranda and I up front the same amount you're going to pay on the back end. So you're really just kind of looking at when are you going to take care of that. One other reason you might need a trust, you just have that beneficiary that needs to be protected from themselves, whether they be disabled, and you want to make sure that you're protecting their public benefits and being taken advantage of by others around them. That's a good reason to have a trust. Or somebody that's not good with money, or one that comes up often. One I just had the other day, someone with substance abuse problem. We don't want them to have a big chunk of money. A trust is a good way to help with that. Maybe it's also a child that is having marital difficulties. You need a trust in that circumstance. I will say, we'll just close that out. If you're just thinking you need a trust to avoid probate, that's the only thing that you can, through that list, you probably don't need a trust. It's just a novelty to you. That's my 2 cents on it. Miranda may have a different opinion. I know other attorneys have different opinions, but that's where I always come out on.
So what Jeff has said is accurate. With all the things he's listed on when you need a trust, when we look at a situation where you could avoid probate, but you don't fit into any of those other categories. To me, if it's the same cost creating the trust versus going to probate, I will tell them, it's about the same cost, but the ease of addressing assets through a trust rather than going through that probate process sometimes is just easier for people to handle. If you have assets that don't make sense to do a trust, then I'm going to tell you, you don't need one. We can deal with this in other ways, putting beneficiaries on, putting a transfer on death deed on your home, different things that we can do. One other instance where you may need a trust, even if you have not a huge amount of assets, is if you have a complicated distribution scheme. So if you have lots of ifs then, so if I have more than $300,000, then I want Judy and Sue to get 30%. But if it's less than that, then I want them to get 60% or whatever. If you have lots of if-thens or lots of different branches in your distribution scheme that you want set out, then a trust can be good. But you can put those things in a will as well. So.
Good, thank you. I just looked at my watch and we're running on time. So I want to leave things open for questions from you all and online. And the last piece is just if you could give the best piece of advice that you could give about end of life planning, what could it be just in one quick statement?
Plan now, talk to your family.
In one quick statement. So the people who work in the elder realm tend to know other people who work in this realm. And so we a lot of times can connect you to other resources to help you plan as well. So there is that extra benefit of coming to someone who is just in that area a lot that you wouldn't get online.
Good.
The documents are great. They provide the authority that your team needs. Don't focus on the documents only. Make sure that they have good instructions on what to do. Who's their CPA? Who's their financial advisor? Who's their doctor? Where are your accounts? Usernames, passwords, all that stuff. On my website, I have, you can download it yourself. It's called the Estate Plan Team Instruction Manual. And it's kind of a guideline for you to fill out so that your team has that.
If you don't have your documents in place, get them in place. If you have documents in place, make sure they are current. That includes not only your trusts or your wills or your lifetime directives or power of attorneys, that also means beneficiary designations on things like life insurance policies and retirement plans.
That's good stuff.
The ugliest story I have about not having beneficiary updates is a court case, which, I'm not an attorney, so that's never good, but.
How many times have you said that today? At least 5, right?
I want people to think I'm an attorney. So a young man married, got divorced, remarried, had children, actually had one child, had a daughter. 35 years later, he died. Had $1 million in his retirement account. And guess who the named beneficiary of the retirement account was?
It was hers too.
Number one.
Yep.
So
It's all
the
hers.
daughter sued and said, that can't possibly be right.
Sorry.
He did not, he discarded her early in his life. I'm the only one that the judge said, all he had to do was call the retirement administrator and change the form. So we're stuck. The first wife gets the money. The first wife's response was, I always knew he really loved me. So
Wow.
make sure your documents are, if you don't have them, get them. If you have them, make sure that they are current and with what you want today, not necessarily when you initially drafted them.
Yeah, that is all great advice. If you're wondering where in the world do I start with this and feeling overwhelmed, I know that is common. It's easy to do. One of the panelists said that in the senior industry, a lot of us work together regularly to refer clients to whatever area of expertise they might need. And that is, there's nothing closer to the truth than that. That's how I know all of the great panelists that you see, all of our sponsors, because we work together regularly. Some of them I use in my own personal life, or we share mutual clients on a regular basis since I've been specializing in senior real estate since 2010. So the people that we use, we've already vetted them out for you. So if there's one person that you connect with, whether it's a panelist, whether it's one of our sponsors on the side in the back of the room, and you have a question, and you don't know where to start there with that person that you connected with, because if there's something outside of their realm of expertise, they're going to refer you to the next person and then the next person. So it's a very small industry, and we know who the good ones are. So yeah, that's all I'd say about that. Any last questions online or in the room? You saw my mom, if you're in the room, you saw my mom handing out feedback forms. If you're online, I'm going to send you a feedback link, and that will qualify you online for a door prize, the $25 gift card that we have for the online folks. And then we have door prizes for the people in the room. So it's any last call for people who want to get their name in the bucket here in the room. Right, and if you are online, we're taking note of you, and we're going to do a drawing for you all too, so that you don't feel left out. We're doing our very best to host the hybrid meeting, which is in person and online. Last month was a bust. We didn't do it well. I've logged several hours learning how to do this. So I know it's not perfect, but we're really trying. All right. While I'm doing this, I just do want to remind you guys, we could not do this without our sponsors. And I encourage you to go over there before you leave and talk to them and get their information, see what specials they might have and that sort of thing. So I'm going to do, speaking of sponsors, I'm going to do Stacy's basket first. They have been so popular, especially this last year and a half. And so the winner of that is Audrey Groff. Am I saying that right? There you go. Congratulations, Audrey. Stacy will bring it to you. And then I know Jeff has a couple of coffee mugs filled with some goodies, so we'll give those away next. Two here. Okay. Dottie Renner. Where's Dottie? Oh, there you are. Yes. Okay. I don't know what's in there, but and then Tech Pro. Yeah, there you go. Congratulations, ladies. And then I'm going to give away 2 of the flowers. The rest of them, I'm going to let you guys fight over. If there are any men in the room, you want to bring it home to your significant other. Great. So 2 flowers from Eagledale Florist. They've been providing us flowers for 5 years now, and they do last for what, like 4 weeks? Yeah. All right. So the first one is Trish Riedel. Am I saying that right? Okay, there you go. You have one right there at your table. And Jackie Lee. Yeah. You guys, well, there's 2 right here in the front. So, so again, I go get more refreshments if you want for the road back there from Bright Star Care. Visit the sponsors. And be sure to fill out the feedback form. If you plan on coming to next month's event, you can write it on the form and we'll go ahead and RSVP for you. The topic next month is about exercise and relaxation. So we'll have some good panelists there. And thank you guys all for coming.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. That was awesome. I think we did it.
Absolutely.
Rapture. Oh, sorry.
Just need